At 56, the world sees Ice Cube as a legend, a rapper, actor, and cultural icon. But behind the fame and success lies a story few truly know. Beneath the spotlight is a man who's faced unimaginable personal losses, betrayals, and silent battles that never made the headlines. What happened to him in recent years has left even his closest fans heartbroken. This isn't just a fall from fame, it's a deeply human story of pain, resilience, and the price of silence. Before the world knew his name, before the records, the films, or the fame, Ice Cube was just a quiet kid growing up in South Central Los Angeles. Life was never easy, but it was stable in its own way. His parents worked hard. His mom was a hospital clerk. His dad worked as a groundskeeper at UCLA. They stretched every dollar, kept the family safe as best they could, and tried to shelter their kids from the dangers that lived just outside their front door. But no amount of love or structure could protect them from what happened when Ice Cube was just 12 years old. That was when everything changed. His sister Beverly died suddenly, taken from them in a way no one saw coming. She was in her late teens. One day she was there, and the next she wasn't. The news came like a punch to the gut, so sharp, so final, that no one in the family really knew how to process it. Ice Cube remembered his mom collapsing to her knees, covering her face with her hands like she could block out the pain. His dad, usually so steady, sat frozen, staring at the floor like he was searching for something that wasn't there anymore. At the funeral, Cube stood on the sidewalk with his hands stuffed in his pockets, watching the car drive away. He didn't cry. He just stood there in silence, a silence that didn't belong to a child, but one that settled into him and never fully left. After that, the house changed. It felt colder, quieter. His mom stopped smiling as much. His dad talked less and less, and Cube walked through the halls like he was trying not to disturb something fragile, a memory, a moment, a ghost. He grew up fast, too fast. That one loss, that one moment, shaped everything. It was the first crack in a life that would be filled with both greatness and grief. And even now, decades later, the ache of that childhood wound still lingers in the background of every verse, every film, and every step forward. When Ice Cube walked away from NWA in 1989, it wasn't just a career move. It was a leap into the unknown. He was only 20 years old. The group he helped build had just released Straight Outta Compton, one of the most powerful and controversial albums in music history. But behind all the success, behind the fame, behind the headlines and sold-out shows, Cube was being cut out of the business. The paperwork didn't match the praise. He wrote the group's most iconic lyrics but saw none of the rewards. His paycheck didn't reflect his contribution, just $32,000, while the album made millions. So he left, alone. No legal team, no label backing him, just truth, anger, and a pen sharp enough to cut through the noise. Most people thought he was crazy. You don't walk away from a group like NWA and expect to survive in the industry. But Ice Cube didn't just survive, he came back stronger. In 1990, he dropped his solo debut, America's Most Wanted. It wasn't just a record, it was a statement. Bold, raw, and unfiltered. He didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat. He talked about racism, police brutality, and life in the streets with a fire that forced people to listen. The album was a hit. It proved that he didn't need NWA to succeed. His voice, by itself, was enough to shake the system. The next year, he released Death Certificate, even more controversial and fearless. Critics tried to shut him down. Some radio stations refused to play him, but the people listened. They heard something real, something that hadn't been cleaned up for public approval. Cube was telling their truth, but music was just the beginning. In 1991, a young director named John Singleton gave Cube a call. Singleton was casting for Boys and the Hood, a film about growing up in South Central LA. Something Cube knew better than anyone. He had never acted before, but there was something in his presence Singleton believed in. Something raw, honest, and powerful. Cube read for the role of Doughboy, and it clicked. He didn't just act, he lived it. Boys and the Hood became a cultural moment. Critics praised it, audiences connected to it. And Ice Cube was suddenly more than a rapper. He was a real actor, but Hollywood wasn't quick to welcome him. They still saw him as just a rapper playing pretend. He knew he'd have to fight for every opportunity, so he studied, he worked, he rewrote lines and scripts. He learned the camera the same way he learned to write rhymes, through focus, failure, and repetition. He didn't wait for roles, he made them. In 1995, he wrote Friday, a low-budget comedy about a single day in the neighborhood. It had no big studios backing it, just $3.5 million, a tight crew, and a lot of heart. But Friday exploded. It made $28 million and became a cult classic. Not just because it was funny, but because it was real. It showed another side of the hood, the laughter, the weird neighbors, the regular people just trying to get by. Cube captured something authentic, and people loved him for it. That same year, he launched his production company, Cube Vision. No more waiting on studios, no more asking permission. He started producing his own films. Barbershop, Are We There Yet? All About the Benjamins. The movies weren't just hits, they were proof that a kid from South Central could become a power player in Hollywood without changing who he was. But success came with pressure. Cube was juggling everything: writing, acting, producing, touring. He was in meetings that stretched until 2 a.m., flying across time zones and constantly trying to protect what he built. He once said success didn't make things easier, it just made the stakes higher. One flop could erase years of work. One bad call could sink the whole ship. Still, he didn't back down. In 2017, when most artists would be coasting, Cube launched something nobody expected: a professional basketball league called the Big Three. A 3-on-3 league made up of former NBA stars and international players. People laughed at first. A rapper starting a sports league? That sounded crazy to some. But Cube saw something others didn't. He saw a gap. Older players still had game but no platform. Fans still loved them but had no reason to watch. So he built it from scratch. He worked with investors, signed athletes, negotiated with arenas, and turned the Big Three into a real competitive league. It wasn't easy. There were lawsuits, financial risks, sleepless nights, but he kept going, like he always had, just like he did when he left NWA, just like when he walked into Hollywood with no acting resume, just like when he wrote Friday in his own voice and trusted the world would get it. Step by step, brick by brick, he built a legacy. He never chased trends. He chased truth. Whether it was in a rap verse, a movie script, or a boardroom decision, Ice Cube stayed grounded in who he was. He never let anyone define his limits. He created his own lane and over the years turned himself into something more than just a rapper, more than an actor, more than a businessman. He became a blueprint for every artist who feels boxed in, for every kid from the hood who doesn't want to choose between being real and being successful. For anyone told they have to tone it down, play the game, or wait their turn, Ice Cube stands as proof that you don't have to. You can tell your story, your way, and build a career that lasts not because you followed the rules, but because you made your own. And even now, decades after that first verse, decades after that first movie role, he's still working, still creating, still proving that legacy isn't about one moment. It's about staying true through every chapter. Whether it's music, film, business, or family, Ice Cube didn't just break through. He stayed. He lasted. And in an industry built on fast fame and quick fades, that may be the biggest legacy of all. In 2021, Ice Cube made a decision that shook both Hollywood and his career, but he didn't shout about it. He didn't hold press conferences. He didn't post angry videos or start a debate online. He just quietly walked away from a $9 million movie role in the comedy Oh Hell No after refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine, which the studio required at the time. It wasn't a loud protest. It was a silent stand, one rooted in personal belief, principle, and the right to choose. To many people, turning down that kind of money sounded crazy. In Hollywood, $9 million isn't just a paycheck. It's security. It's momentum. It means staying on the list. It means people call you for the next big thing. But for Ice Cube, the decision had nothing to do with fame or finances. It was about staying true to himself, even if that truth came at a cost. And the cost was real. After the headlines faded, the impact lingered. The phone rang less often. Studio offers slowed down. Some meetings were quietly canceled. No one said it out loud, but it became clear. Hollywood was moving on without him. Not in a dramatic, blacklisted kind of way. More like a cold shoulder that never gets acknowledged. Just silence. Just space where there used to be opportunity. For a man who had spent over 3 decades building a name, a brand, a legacy, it was a strange shift. Ice Cube had already survived the music industry, Hollywood typecasting, and the rise and fall of entire eras. But this felt different, not because he was being punished directly, but because the industry had changed while he was still standing still, on purpose. He later admitted the loss of the role stung more than he expected, not because of the money, but because of what it represented. Another chapter, another voice in his body of work. It was a moment that reminded him how quickly doors can close, even after everything you've built. He said it best himself. "I didn't walk away from Hollywood. It walked away from me." But Cube wasn't built to sit still or stay bitter. He never was. Instead of chasing apologies or trying to get back into anyone's good graces, he turned inward. He focused on what he could control. He doubled down on projects he owned, not the ones where he had to ask permission. He put more energy into the Big Three basketball league, which was still growing slowly but surely, and into music, where he could say what he wanted, how he wanted. Then quietly, a shift began. In 2024, he started touring again, first on a small scale, then with more steam. People still showed up. The fans hadn't gone anywhere. His voice still meant something. His story still mattered. And it became clear, while Hollywood might have cooled off, the people hadn't. They remembered. They respected the stand, even if they didn't agree with it. At 56, Ice Cube wasn't trying to make a comeback, because he never truly left. He was just moving differently now. He began speaking more about creative freedom and ownership, about not chasing relevance but building legacy. He quietly executive produced a Netflix docuseries called Built from Nothing, focusing on self-made Black creators and entrepreneurs, stories that mirrored his own. It wasn't flashy, but it hit home. Critics praised it, fans connected to it, and just like that, Cube was back in the conversation, but this time on his terms. He was no longer the angry young man with a mic and a message. He was a seasoned man who had been through the storm and was still standing, still sharp, still moving. The fire hadn't gone out. It had just settled into something steadier, more focused. There was something powerful in that transformation. The younger version of Cube might have fought back louder, but this version of him, wiser, calmer, understood that silence can speak just as loud, that sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's leading. And as the world slowly caught up to that, Ice Cube began to feel the shift again. Not in the headlines, but in the halls of influence. Investors took new meetings. Younger artists started reaching out, asking for advice, wanting mentorship. Doors that had once closed cracked open again, not because he begged, but because he endured. That's the thing about Cube. He never asks for your permission. He just keeps building until the structure is too solid to ignore. In 2025, he announced a European expansion for Big Three, a bold move that many thought was impossible when he first launched the league. But that's always been his path, doing what people say can't be done, then turning around and doing it again. The league had gone from a cool idea to a serious enterprise. It was respected now. It was profitable. And it was his. At home, life looked different too. The spotlight no longer followed him everywhere, but he no longer needed it. He had built enough to finally slow down, to breathe a little deeper, to enjoy his days instead of surviving them. Mornings with his wife, afternoons checking in on business, evenings in the studio or at a Lakers game. Simpler moments, but richer ones. Ice Cube at 56 isn't chasing relevance, he's shaping legacy. And if the industry forgot that for a while, that's okay. Because the truth always waits. It doesn't rush, it doesn't beg. It just stands steady until the world remembers. He may have lost a role, he may have lost a few invitations, but what he never lost, not once, was his voice, his integrity, or his sense of direction. In the end, that's what makes him timeless. For all the success Ice Cube has had, the gold records, the box office hits, the million-dollar deals, his greatest achievement isn't found on any stage or screen. It's at home. It's in the life he built when no one was watching. When the noise fades, when the crowds leave, that's where the real victory lives. In family, in faith, and in the foundation that held him up through everything else. Long before the fame, back when he was still a teenager from South Central with a notebook full of rhymes and a heart full of pain, he met a girl named Kimberly. She didn't fall for him right away. In fact, she barely looked twice. But something about her stayed with him. The way she carried herself, quiet but strong. She moved through the world like she didn't need attention, and maybe that's what made her unforgettable. Eventually, she saw him too. Not the rising star or the guy with big dreams, but the real him. Thoughtful, driven, scarred by loss, and still learning who he was. They started slow, just two young people figuring life out. In those early days, there were no red carpets, no mansions, no limos waiting outside. There were late-night talks on secondhand couches, grocery bills that stretched too far, and small victories like paying rent on time. They married in 1992, just as Ice Cube's fame was really starting to explode. He was already a voice in hip-hop, stepping into acting, writing, and producing. Life got loud, busy, demanding. But through it all, Kimberly stayed steady. She wasn't caught up in the fame. She wasn't looking for a spotlight. She was building something deeper, a real home, a real life, something that could hold its shape even when the world started spinning too fast. And there were times it spun way too fast. Ice Cube has admitted that the success came with a price. He worked long hours, flew to different cities, juggled film shoots, meetings, music, and business deals. There were birthdays missed, school events he couldn't make, and quiet dinners Kimberly ate alone while their kids asked when Dad was coming home. One moment in particular stayed with him. It was their son's birthday. The cake was ready. The candles were lit. Kimberly kept glancing at the door, hoping he'd walk in at the last second, but he didn't. Their son finally asked, "Is Dad coming?" And all she could say was, "He's trying." That night, when Ice Cube finally made it home, the party was over. His son had fallen asleep on the couch, still holding the wrapped gift meant for his dad. That was the night something shifted in him. He realized that winning in the world meant nothing if he was losing time with the people who loved him most. He started coming home differently, more present, more aware. He didn't just show up physically, he began showing up emotionally, sitting with his kids, listening to their stories, helping with homework, sitting in silence if that's what they needed. He stopped treating home like a break from work and started treating it like the center of everything. And over time, something beautiful happened. The family grew stronger, not because everything was perfect, but because they stayed connected. Kimberly, with her quiet strength, kept the family rooted. She wasn't just his wife, she was his anchor. Their 5 children, O'Shea Jr., Daryl, Karima, Deja, and Sharif, grew up with love, structure, and respect. They weren't spoiled, they were supported. They watched their father hustle, but they also saw him choose family again and again, even when it was hard. And then came a full circle moment. In 2015, when Straight Outta Compton was released, Ice Cube sat in a dark theater and watched his oldest son, O'Shea Jr., play him on screen. Every painful memory, every battle, every song and scar, it was all there. But now, told through the eyes of his own child, he didn't just see his story, he saw the impact of his legacy. And in that moment, something inside him healed. Today, Ice Cube is not just a rapper, actor, or businessman. He's a husband, a father, a grandfather, and that role, the quiet, everyday role, is the one he holds closest. His home isn't flashy for the sake of showing off, but it's filled with warmth. Holidays are loud and full of laughter. Backyard barbecues turn into family debates. The kitchen is where everyone gathers. Kimberly's still making the dishes everyone asks for year after year. Cube walks around with the calm rhythm of a man who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. His phone buzzes with business. Sure, big 3 updates, film projects, new music ideas, but he's learned when to let it sit and just enjoy the sound of his family in the next room. What's powerful is that he doesn't brag about this part of his life. You won't see long interviews or flashy posts about how great of a dad or husband he is. He just lives it, day by day, choice by choice, showing up, staying present, staying real. And when you ask him now what success really means, he doesn't talk about money. He doesn't talk about fame. He talks about coming home to people who still want to see you, about being the kind of man your children want to learn from, about staying married to the same woman for over 30 years in an industry where relationships break like glass, about knowing that when the lights fade, what matters most is who's still sitting at your table. That's the real victory. Not the headlines, not the numbers, but the life behind it all. The steady, grounded, beautiful life he built with his wife and kids, and the peace that comes from knowing he didn't lose himself along the way. Because in the end, Ice Cube's greatest legacy won't be written in platinum plaques or box office totals. It will be written in the love of the family who never stopped waiting for him to come home.